not be here today if it were not for our sponsors here. So how about a round of applause for all of our sponsors today? We appreciate them at FutureCon. We could not have these shows happen without them, and we couldn't have these shows happen without our audience. So thank you to everyone that participated today. One of the things we've been doing for the past couple of years is when we go to 29 cities, when we enter that city, probably about 6 months prior, we pull our audience from the past year in our database of who, and I think it's even on our survey, is there somebody that you would recommend to be an honoree, someone that goes above and beyond the call of duty? And we know all of you guys are cybersecurity practitioners, so we all know that you're out there keeping us safe, and we appreciate that. But we do have a group of people, and sometimes they're so important they're probably not even going to be here. They checked in, but they may have left. I hope they're here still. So let me start with Joel Wicker. He is the Information Security Manager at Western Alliance Bank. Joel, are you here? Is Joel here? I don't. He was. He might be around still. Is Alora Skiff, Cyber Third-Party Risk Management at Silicon Valley Bank. All right. Congratulations. Thank you. Tristan Ligon is a cybersecurity engineer at Golden Corral Corp. All right. Congratulations. We have Martin Manriquez is the IT manager at InfraGard Flight Training Center. Martin, are you here still? Is Martin here? Cassandra Jessica, Operation Risk Director at American Express. Congratulations. Luke Guillo is the IT Director at Commercial Properties. Luke, are you here? Liza Gonzalez, AVP at Assistant Vice President, Cybersecurity Analyst at SunWest Bank. Sorry, I'm tongue-tied today. Thank you. I'll be calling you next year to sit on this panel. Okay, Craig Cummings is the IT Director, Scottsdale Christian Academy. I know that Craig was here. I just talked to him. I'll call a few of these people. Oh, here he comes. All right. Thank you. And Lonnie Benavides is a CISO from at Chegg. Lonnie, are you here? I really feel like a lot of these people are out in the foyer. Okay, Seema Patel, who is sitting on our panel, is the Assistant CISO from Maricopa County. Seema. And then we have Keith Stocks. Keith Stocks is the VP Third-Party Cyber Risk Management and Governance Leader at State Street. Thank you. Keith has been great, a big supporter of FutureCon for a long time, as well as Michael Manrod, who's the Chief Information Security Officer. Our hero today, Grand Canyon Education. He knows everyone. Bindi Davé is the Deputy CISO at DigiCert. Here you go, Bindi. Thank you. We have Dara Gibson, who is the president of the Arizona InfraGard. And thank you, Dara. And Dara is going to be moderating the panel today, so I'm going to give it to Dara. And I kind of just introduced our panel, but I'll let her. But I do see I might have an honoree that just walked in that I didn't call. What is your first name? Lonnie? Yeah. All right, Lonnie, come on up. CISO from Chegg. I won't mess your name up twice, so come on up. How about a round of applause from Lonnie? Congratulations, Lonnie. Thank you. Okay, so let's welcome Dara and our CISO panel.
Good afternoon. My name is Dara Gibson, and I am the president of the Arizona InfraGard. Thank you guys so much for staying in the last panel of the day. We have a great conversation coming today. With us, we have Bindi Davé from DigiCert, Keith Stocks from State Street, Seema Patel from Maricopa County, and Mike Manrod from Grand Canyon Education. Now, before we begin, I'd like to ask these four people to give you guys a little bit of insight of who they are. You know who they are and where they work, but I wanted to ask you guys, what's one item that you're super proud of that occurred in 2024 that you can share with your audience? Keith, you've got the mic, so we'll let you start first.
It's been a long year. That wasn't a question before. I guess it's I changed the exhaust system on my truck. She thinks I'm kidding.
No. Hey, I'm proud that you could say exhaust system on a truck. I wouldn't even know how to begin to change it out. So congratulations. That's something to be proud of. Bindi, how about you?
Well, that's a tough follow-up because I don't know where the exhaust system is. I think I'd say that this year, so DigiCert is a highly regulated organization, with public trust, being a RA and a CA certificate authority. And my team and I just implemented an automated way to prioritize within the business, so building the connective tissue between engineering and compliance with a security foundation, so we can effectively define our protect surface, because our attack surface is everything, but in an era where there's budgets and, for-profit businesses, prioritizing is important. So that was pretty cool.
Prioritizing those protect surfaces. That's a cool way to put it. Thank you. Congratulations.
I feel so small.
Seema, how about you? What are you super proud of this year?
Shoot. One, that I didn't cuss when I said that word. So from a personal perspective, I'm proud of the fact that I am continuing to grow in my Krav Maga career, and I started instructing. So now as a partner in a school, I teach. And I started in jiu-jitsu, and I figured out that martial arts and cybersecurity are super interconnected. So I thought I was being really unique, and I'm not, and now it kind of makes me sad, but it is what it is. On the professional front, I can't compete with DigiCert. But on the professional front for Maricopa County, I think the biggest win I've had thus far in 2024 is it's not 2020, so we have fewer.
Rock on.
Right, we have fewer litigations against us now than we did in 2021-22 about the 2020 election, and that I slept a reasonable number of hours in the 5 days before the election. So I think that's a win for us. And
that alone right there is an accomplishment.
Right? I think on the reason why I feel more confident walking into where we're at is because we have done so much preparation for not just what's coming for Maricopa County and the state of Arizona, but what we've done to shore up our cybersecurity program altogether. We have an amazing group of people. We've been doing a lot of tabletop exercises this year, which is pretty new for us. We've been bringing into fold a lot of our enterprise IT systems. We've been doing a lot more collaboration in 2024 and starting to create a lot more of our security standards. And I think that for us has been a humongous win across the board for the enterprise, that in 2024 we are Maricopa County as a collective versus Maricopa County as a group of IT agencies supporting 5 million residents and visitors. So that's a win for us. And I know Mike, and I think that's a win.
That's really inspiring, and what I'm most proud of, I think, obviously my kids, but on a professional note, the real test of a community is adversity, and when CrowdStroke hit, and 719, like there were a lot of pockets where you could tell there wasn't planning and connection, and being in the higher ed space, I felt very well supported. We had bridge calls with the state, with the county. Some of Seema's team members helped us, and things came back online, and we recovered together, and we were stronger together. So, I mean, I'm really proud of this community and how everybody comes together, as well as the leadership from a lot of our agencies and leaders in government.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. So, audience, we have a huge panel conversation today. We're going to talk about emerging threats, incident response, cloud security, IoT, regulation compliance, security awareness, collaboration with information sharing, threat intelligence, supply chain security, and ethical hacking and pen testing. So if you thought you were leaving anytime this evening, you're totally wrong. We're going to be here all night long. So let's go ahead and get started. Seema, I'm going to throw this first question out at you. What are the most significant emerging cybersecurity threats and how should organizations prepare for them?
So I think everybody's heard the 2-letter cuss word of 2024, which is AI, right?
And cheers. Cheers.
Cheers to everybody and AI. So AI is a significant emerging threat, right? Large language models, the ability for us to use data, and I've always been a data-driven decision person, right? So I came from healthcare. We have used data to make decisions about human healthcare for so long. We use data to make decisions every day for everything. We've tried so hard now to leverage AI to help us go through the significant amount of data that we collect and use every single day to make decisions for every business line that we do. We also recognize that as much as AI can help us, AI can harm us. And it's just a matter of the human being that sits behind that AI tool or that AI task, right? So I can use large language model, I can use AI to help me do data analytics and to do incident response, threat intelligence work. I can do cyber analytics, I can create a phishing campaign for my staff, but so can somebody else, right? And they can do it for just as the opposite nefarious purposes. So I think AI is one of our biggest threats, right? IoT continues to be a significant threat vector for us. Every single thing that we do for the betterment of the customers, the residents, the people that we support, and the people that we do business for is, on the other side of it, is somebody that is 180 degrees opposite of what we're trying to do, and they're trying to bring us down. I think for preparation, number one is knowing what it is, being able to really understand what that threat vector is. So what is AI? What can it do? What can we use it for? And then what can somebody else use it for against us? IoT, where is our IoT? How does it function? What can and can't it do? How do our networks work, right? And then how do we think like an attacker? And then, so how do we red team our infrastructure? And then how do we blue team against that? And how do we build a more secure infrastructure? Policy, I cannot state this enough, and I'm sure Keith understands this from risk management perspective, right? Your governance is going to drive your security posture better than anything else. Because for as many times, I don't know how many times we've done this in governance, where some person will tell me, well, you don't have a policy that says that I can't. Right? So, common sense be damned. There's no policy that says I can't do it. So your governance has to be legit. Your governance has to be created, and it can't be created in a vacuum. So I have a governance policy team, right? They write policy and they're super good at it, but they don't write policy from the perspective of a red team, right? They don't write policy from the perspective of the base worker who wants to use ChatGPT to do their job better, right? To be able to write their report, to be able to do what it is. We're not looking at them. We're not incorporating their feedback into how we write governance, because every single time we say you can't do something, we have to have a you can do this instead, right? So I think that's the biggest thing we need to do as organizations to prepare for those, is we really need to think, and I think it's too late, we really need to think ahead of, for every single thing every emerging technology that's coming out there. If we've already heard that it's an emerging technology, it's done emerging, it's emerged, it's here. How our organizations choose to adopt it, how we choose to use it, how we choose to ban it, I think that we really need to prepare for, and we need to be on point and understand how that's going to impact our business for the best. And
Which of the four of you have anything else to add for AI?
from a risk management perspective.
Yeah, we started dipping our toe into AI, but from a third-party aspect, and I'll just say nth party, we built that into our program. We've met a lot of resistance because we're out on the forefront, but it's there. I'm from the early days of shared assessment, so you can tell where my program came from. We met in a little room in Chicago. It was kind of dark, about 15 of us in 2003. Now you know how old I'm getting. So we've built that into our process, and we also build it into our contractual process. They have to notify us. I like to build all those in there so I can go after them for breach, especially after the nth parties, when they don't do due diligence on them, and our information, not in this current position, in the past, has popped up on the internet in a terabyte-sized file, and I spend my evening going through line by line looking for customer information. So AI, it is the forefront. I know we're looking at it. We've hired some top quality talent to build out governance around it, but we've put it into our third-party process just to ask about it, ensure it's covered.
Piggybacking off of both of what you covered, I think when we look at emerging threats, every time and time again, year after year, social engineering comes up. You have your supply chain, your third-party exposure, but AI is an underpinning of that because it just accelerates the speed, right, of all of that. Coming from a CA, top of mind for me is post-quantum cryptography, PQC, and what happens when you bring post-quantum meets AI, and what does our world look like? Governance is a major part of it, but I also think when we look at how businesses ultimately function, and we talk about the speed of the business and where finances are and where you're getting budgets from, we have to understand what's important to the business, right? What are those business outcomes and goals that the business is looking for? And that comes back to identifying the protect surface. So if we have an understanding of where our critical data is located and understanding what human and non-human accessors we have, then we can start centralizing and creating a governance and technology strategy that meets the business and understanding what do we need to protect, what do we need to harden that still empowers the business, because you can't harden it. I mean, the best and most secure solution is completely turned off, right? Nobody's accessing it. That's not practical. So when we look at our threats, I think we also need to come at it from a practical lens of where is that risk versus reward, and what does that overall strategy look like?
Fantastic. Thank you.
Keith, you want to take Mike, you want to take it home?
Actually, they all nailed it. The only thing I'll add is kind of double clicking on something Seema said, which is we need to be the how people, not the know people, right? Like technology, I love the old Jurassic quote, Park, life will find a way. Technology will find a way, and if we don't create a good pathway to do it correctly, it definitely will happen incorrectly. So we have to keep that in mind, but nothing else to add.
So Mike, let's start with you on the next question. If we haven't been prepared, how do we help mitigate the AI, the third party, the supply chain issue, the quantum? How do we mitigate should the need arise?
So there's a lot to that question. I think the first piece is to break it into layers of that problem, right? There's a societal layer. If you haven't read Nexus by Yuval Noah Harari, great book, just came out. But he reimagines history from the narrative of human evolution as information networks, right? And our interactions and our growth from that perspective. And he brings up the point that, for the entire history of humanity, there have not ever been non-biological nodes in the information processing network. Now there are. What does that mean? How do we need to reimagine and rethink how we deal with society? So there's kind of that like overarching level. But then at the detailed level, the basics still count, right? Like if you have a bad day and AI was involved, the fundamentals of detecting and responding to incidents, remediating, learning from mistakes, making good plans for the future. A whole lot of it ends up being going back to the basics and just having to do them even better because we have this new challenge.
Fantastic. Anybody else for mitigation? So let's go into the scare stories. We all love these. If you have experienced an incident response, a lot of times we have plan books put in place to effectively create that incident response plan. Sometimes those plans don't quite work out. Can you, within parameters, share a successful incident response that maybe you guys have handled? It doesn't have to be AI related, just an incident response.
I love IR. It's not that I don't love sleep, but you really band together and build a community when you're with your responders in the thick of it. I remember when I was at GoDaddy a few years ago, it seemed like our Christmas present was incident after incident after incident, and we learned a lot through that time frame. Now, I speak softly. I'm generally a calm person. I think that's the type of demeanor that you need to bring into an incident. When everything's going haywire and people are frantic and going crazy, it is being calm, collected, and getting an order of operations together. You have your operations teams, right? Your SRE teams, your security teams. At the end of the day, we're marching in one direction. But sequencing, what do we need to do? Who needs to be informed? How do we need to communicate? And of course, keeping Krebs off our back.
And not using my cell phone as your incident response plan.
Yes, exactly. And making, especially when you're sitting at 2 a.m. with the CEO fighting over what word you're going to use in the press release. That was a fun one. So I'd say lessons learned is don't be Chicken Little, right? The sky, if you go around screaming the sky is falling, the more, depending on the size and scale and public or private company that you have, the more execs that get involved, especially folks that are in different areas of the business. Things can stray away from the intention of, or the priority of the incident, just to contain, eradicate, right? Get your operations back up and running. So with that, I think I have a fun story. I'm not going to say the company that we were at.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
No, but this is all hypothetical because I had a friend that said, any scenario or story that you share, start with, it's a hypothetical, but it's not. So we had malware running rampant through the environment, and we were lacking command and control on the configuration items, or the CIs, the servers. So we partnered with our SRE team. We're like, okay, we have to get something out there. We need to go and pull these systems offline, quarantine them. So in order to get the EDR technology out, we partnered with them. They got their salt config up, ran and sprayed the CIs, and we thought that we were getting into a controlled state. A couple hours later, their puppet goes out, removes it all. So we were fighting between spreadsheets to get an inventory together, to then fight between their configurations to get the tooling on the endpoint so that we can just quarantine the affected hosts at a minimum. So that was a good lessons learned on why we needed an inventory, and why these systems needed to proactively, or the EDR solution needed to proactively be on the CIs, which empowered us to get some budget. But then you go through an incident and you're not thinking about documentation at that time, right? So time stamping. Every event that happened, everything that you identified, every action that you took, or even if you're publicly traded, who's involved in the incident, why they're involved, what their role is, and then potentially having a legal hold on trading. So the result of that was your documentation shouldn't take you X amount of time longer than the incident itself. So ensuring that if you're standing up a communication channel and you're, taking action, just ensure that you have someone, maybe your coordinator, or a role that's documenting along the way, specifically a timeline going through the incident, so that you can build that incident report, because you know that there's going to be some regulators that are waiting for it, and they're not going to wait months until you're over it to get the report. So that was fun.
Wow. Yeah, I've been doing incident response for about 4.5 decades. I'm a retired Air Force cop, so we've had a lot of incidents. So I'll just stick with technology, not my fun ones. Where the lieutenant runs the gate and we have to chase him. I found that over the years being prepared for the incident, she covered all the steps. In fact, I had to go through all of those in a presentation to the board of directors, and I did not know the insurance carrier was in the room, which was kind of sweet. It was both of them at the same time. And as following the steps as we were presenting, the compliance/privacy officer kept laughing because their scenarios that they were throwing at me had happened the week before. And we followed the self-developed playbooks that we propagated across an association, 21 plans, and there's it down where I was. So we all had the same processes in unison, the same playbooks, because we'd have to do mass uploads, terabytes of data during an incident. But yeah, incident response is just so key. And document as you go. Everything, every step. Nothing is mundane. You can parse it out later. What happened at what time, who did it, because they may have done it wrong. I installed a tool called Observe It on everything, and it records everything. You can't delete it. You can't change it. It's a flat file. It's great for incidents. That's a sales pitch for that, because I had it on 1,100 servers, and it came in handy. Yeah, I could preach an incident response. I can tell you some good stories offline. Multi-country. I've operated around the planet, so I've come up with some real good ones.
Guess we'll just go down the line. So clearly we've all had to deal with this. How many of you, by show of hands, got into a car accident before you learned how to drive? Okay. So for those of you that got into a car accident before you learned how to drive, how many of you were influenced by that car accident in changing some of the practices you used when you were allowed to drive? Okay. So we're going to learn either through the teachings of others and or our own experiences. So incidents are always going to be, for everybody at this table, we're all going to say the same thing, that incidents are teachable opportunities, right? They're teachable moments. We had an incident, it's hypothetically this county that I work for. I'm on it. So hypothetically, this county that I work for had an incident. And the reason why I'm going to nail it as a success story is because it was all the fun things that happened in evidence of the fact that we did a really good job collectively, and again, as an enterprise, right? So we have disparate IT teams that do different things, that have different levels of a cybersecurity culture within their practice, right? But we had an agency that they have servers within their own purview, and a sysadmin just happened to think that one server that they had was a little bit slower than it should be. And they reported that to us, which under normal circumstances, sysadmins try to solve problems long before, right? But they just happened to report it to us and say, we think something hinky, I think that's a technical term, something hinky is going on with this particular server. It's slower than normal. Can you take a look, right? That's not something you normally triage as a tier 1 cybersecurity incident, right? Something weird is all day, every day. But we happened to work with that person to crack that server open and found evidence, actually active exploitation. So the attacker was in the system. We were following along with the code that they were writing in an attempt to exfiltrate the code. And it's a popcorn popping moment where you just watch, right? You know they're going to fail, but you just kind of want to watch how this proceeds. So we're watching them attempt to exfiltrate data. And they figured out probably about 6 commands in that they were going to be unsuccessful. And their final command was literally the words, F you. I'd like to say it's the complexity of our network that nobody understands, where they got lost and couldn't figure their way out. The worst corn maze ever. But in reality, it was the fact that they knew that whatever scripts they were trying to run were going to get shut down 100% of the time, right? So it's a success story because our IT teams understand the concept of report when something doesn't seem right. And that's a huge win all by itself, right? Then it's our incident response team that says, I trust your judgment, and I'm going to support you and consider this as a cybersecurity incident until we can take that out, right? So I think that's a huge culture shift also. Then I think it's a huge culture shift that the application security on the app dev managed to take some of our cybersecurity classes, right? And we've done DevSec with them. They had all the correct security controls in place. We've tested and validated that all of those security controls were functioning as they should ahead of time. So we were able to look at this system and say, we know nothing's going to happen. We can sit back and watch this go down. But we wouldn't have been able to do that had we not had all of that in place ahead of time. So to me, that was a hugely successful incident because it wasn't an incident. It was an event, and it was fun.
So I love that story. I think everybody's covered incidents well, and that's a good bridge to events, right? It's not just what we learn from the big incidents, the big things that happen, which are very important, and I think we learn and grow and even have fond memories of those times. Definitely had times where sleeping at hotels near work, sleeping at work, lots of crazy stories in that regard. But I think one thing we can unpack is we're getting attacked all the time, right? Like if we have incidents, hopefully rarely, we have events all the time, every day. So as we have those, I think our security operations, our purple teaming, and our continuous assessment feeding in to architecture and engineering need to become really, really efficient and streamlined. Okay, we saw an attack. The attack was against a resource that we really do have. It failed. We blocked it for whatever reason. But let's actually war game that. Let's purple team it. Let's figure out where else this problem exists, what exploitation would look like. If they failed, maybe we can find a way on our internal team to succeed where the adversary failed, and then that will inform, we can write custom detections based on that so that if they do ever succeed, we know what it looks like. We can create, new controls, deploy new controls, or even just tune and adjust things until your own purple teaming efforts that succeeded where the attacker failed then go back to failing. And I think through that we can use that interoperability across teams to better refine our ability to protect, our ability to detect, and our ability to respond.
Absolutely. So that brought up a great point of, we're being attacked constantly, and which leads to an event, which leads to an incident, which, God forbid, leads to a breach. And that's a whole spectrum. One might think it's one particular situation, but it grows to be bigger and bigger. And all three definitions are totally different when it comes to a situation such as what we've just expressed. So thank you. So that leads us to cloud security or IoT. We don't have enough for both. So which would you guys prefer to focus on?
Let's hear from the audience.
Clouds, how they handle cloud security or IoT security?
How many for cloud?
Cloud.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay, cloud.
Cloud. With the increasing reliance on cloud services, what are the key challenges you are faced, and what are the best practices for ensuring robust cloud security?
Okay, I'll start with that. So if we look at CIS 18, fundamental basics, the first three things are all about assets and knowing what you have. And I think that's where we go wrong at the first place with cloud. As vendors, as strategists, we'll be like, well, I have the solution for cloud. Well, what type of cloud? What cloud problem? Where? And I think the first thing is to define, platform and infrastructure as a service separate from SaaS, because they're entirely different strategies, different products, heck, probably different even engineers you'll throw at them often. And then from there, looking at, what's internet facing. Obviously you've got CPSM and secure pipelines and delivery on more of the infrastructure and platform side, and SaaS is its own thing. Obviously CASB's been around forever, but figuring out the right strategies to be able to see problems, to prioritize them, and to fix them. And I'm big on the prioritization because, all right, show of hands in the room, who can fix every problem they know about right now at this moment? Okay, there was
One
unplug the
brave
internet.
soul raised
We
his
had one
hand.
brave soul, but yeah, that's the minority. So I'll hand it at that.
No, I just did. Unplug the internet.
Yeah, unplug the internet. That should do it.
Done. We're done.
ChatGPT solves everything.
Is that in the cloud?
What?
Is that in the cloud?
Maybe. It is somebody else's computer system, so yeah, probably.
That is all the cloud is. So for those of you, I'm sure many of you went to the presentations earlier, so I'm hoping that we're not saying the same thing you've already heard or that we're not conflicting with anything that you've already heard. But again, your cloud strategy is about what it is that you want to put in the purview of somebody else's space, right? So it's either going to be the space that you feel you have some level of control over because it's your corporate-owned cloud that you lease space off of from somebody else, Google, AWS, pick a thing, Oracle. So they call it yours, but it's really not. It's kind of yours. You have some say in what you put and where you put it and how you want to configure it. Then you have the shared hybrid clouds, then you have the gov cloud, so you have all kinds of clouds. Understanding, and I think Mike nailed it, is understanding your asset inventory. What do you have and what is the security posture of that asset, wherever it happens to be? What are the data flows? Do you have control over what connects to it and what it connects to, right? Do you have an understanding, because even all of the cloud service providers have different levels of shared responsibility. So if you talk to Microsoft versus if you talk to Google versus if you talk to AWS, pick a cloud service provider, but they're all going to offer you different levels of service, right, with different levels of responsibility for your infrastructure. Know what your levels of responsibility are, because I can't tell you how many times I've seen data breaches from unsecured containers in a cloud, right? Whose responsibility was it? Did they know that it was even there? When was the last time they checked it, right? What connects to it? So being able to do those security assessments, I think, is huge in being able to consider that your on-prem infrastructure, which you feel very confident in because you have this amazing firewall that protects the world from your infrastructure, you have to stretch that to your cloud, right? It's just somebody else's IP space that you've now leased, that you've got to do the same thing. Your wall just stretched, and you've got to make sure that you understand what your responsibilities are to those assets, what's up there. If you have developers, I guarantee you they have that fun test space that you probably don't know about, right? The playground, where all they've done is taken a production environment, mirrored it, called it test, put all of the live data in there, and then didn't secure it, right? I swear that's not a thing.
There's a Q&A.
So do you know?
I need
Do
to
you
be
know
on
what
channel
you have? And do you? It's 6 p.m. Do you know where your servers are?
That's the quote of the day.
So I think that's my take home, honestly. Like, we have wonderful vendors that are here sharing space with us. We have CASB, we have CPSM, your cloud security posture. You have all of the tools, right? Somewhere along the line, if you can't afford them, you can probably recreate some of them through your own red team, blue team, purple teaming. You can just assess the security posture, inventory your stuff, right? Train your staff and remind them that their name is going to be on the front page of the newspaper should something go down, right? We take the hit as the security officials, but really, I'm taking somebody else with me.
You pointed to me.
Hypothetically.
For me, one gap I find is the lovely Amazon licensing model, where you can go out and provision a server and forget about it, forget what you put on there, and it stays there till it either self-destroys or it doesn't self-destroy. And all of a sudden you get an invoice in, and they weren't doing centralized invoicing, so they all get funneled into this one place eventually, who knows how much later. And they go, well, what's this? And it's a virtual server still sitting out there. Well, who owns it? We don't know. What's on it? Well, don't know.
We don't know.
But for me, with what they've been saying, that's just that one gap for me, just looking at the licensing model. Hey, it's a great methodology. Provision a server, it destroys itself in the end, but what if you didn't set a time on it? And then you got laid off. And then it's just still sitting there and the data's not obfuscated. Because, we don't want people to obfuscate data. That's too hard. Yeah, that's the piece for me that just fills that little hole.
Preach. All of that. I think I'll take a step back from my component and say we have to remember that public clouds, are still third party. So when we're, depending on your organization's third party strategy, right, TPRM, if you have a strategy where everyone can buy whatever they want on their corporate cards, and you have GCP and OCI and AWS, Azure, your poor security team. So one, have an understanding of, or a strategy that aligns with the business on what platform you're going to leverage. Have a concept of cloud readiness. Okay, you bought it and turn it on. Now we're going to shift everything to the cloud. But is it ready? Is it moving in a known good state? Do you have ownership as you're, landing zone set up appropriately, your account set up appropriately, your budget IDs, et cetera, are you on node rotations, whatever that looks like. I think it starts with the strategy, which probably contains your inventory in those components. But I'll tell you, again, hypothetically, it is not a great experience having to partner with finance on combing through P cards for who owns that GCP account. So don't let that be you.
Right, right. So we're going to make a jump. So part of the reason why I was chosen to be the moderator today is I'm the president of InfraGard. InfraGard is designed as a collaboration and information sharing platform for private and public sectors to communicate. So our next category is that collaboration. How can industry collaboration and information sharing enhance collective cybersecurity defenses?
I'll kick it off. Actually, Mike and I were talking about this earlier today. I think all of us are really solving the same problems in different ways, right? In more innovative ways, less innovative ways, however you want to phrase it. And so understanding how, Seema is going through and solving the asset inventory problem, or how I have applied asset classification to understand prioritization. I think it's those discussions and having each other's backs and thinking outside of just our organizations. Specifically, I was heads down practitioner for many years just in the company that I was at. And I feel like that just starts creating an echo chamber. But when you look up and you're saying, oh, these are our peers, CISOs, or senior directors, or what have you, that are looking at innovative ways to solve the same problems, it just expands on how quickly we can band together, because it is an arms race against these threat actors. So what we can leverage, or what technologies they're leveraging successfully or unsuccessfully, to solve many of the same problems.
There we go.
Yeah, sharing can be tough. So you get yourself an agency like the FSISAC, where you sign documentation on disclosures. You agree to share the information. We lean pretty heavily on that. It worked really good in healthcare, so the HSISAC. Never to get into the IT one, but FSISAC and HSISAC are great for information sharing. To a point, you got to get over the paranoia of mine data and the conflict between the companies. But yeah, I found those are really good platforms for sharing information.
So for all of us, I think all of you, we're a community, right? We back each other up. We have to feel comfortable and confident that there is none of us should be inventing anything new, right? We share as much as we can because it helps us collectively. That being said, we understand that every single time we have what I'm going to call a teachable moment, AKA an incident, our attorneys get involved, our insurance gets involved, our leadership gets involved, everybody gets involved, and everybody will tell you, don't say anything to anyone, right? When that is the exact moment, we need you to tell us what happened, because we need to know, they need to know, you need to know, right? What steps that you can potentially take to be proactive, because it's coming for you. Whatever it is, it's agnostic, right, for the most part. It is system agnostic, it's agency agnostic, it's business agnostic, it's coming for you because you have information that there's a monetary value on, right? So ideally, the best way for us to support each other is that intelligence sharing, is that way that we can share as much as we possibly can without getting arrested, without our insurance company flipping out, right? Without our attorneys deciding that they don't want to work for us anymore. But being able to share enough information with each other as partners, as collaborators, as support infrastructure where I can help you. If I get popped, I can help you and I can tell you these are the indicators of compromise, right? These are the things that you need to be on the lookout for. I can share with you best practices, right? I'm going to be hitting Keith up later for some risk management stuff. But my responsibility to secure my infrastructure is to share what I do with you and to ask all of you to share back, because that is the only way we can actually function as a secure environment, right? We all talk to each other. Our systems talk to each other. At 6 o'clock, I know my server's at your place.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I agree with all of that. And to the, like, hey, what can we share? How can we share responsibly? Well, one, I think we can dial back the paranoia, and we can probably share a lot. There's a lot we can share, like we're all doing here today with each other. But ISOs, ISACs, InfraGard, ACTRA, orgs that bring us together under NDA also help. And I think having an idea of the lines of what's TLP green, what can we all talk about? Like, we can all talk about malware and threats. They're hitting all of us. It's not a secret.
Right.
There's nobody here not being hit by, access brokers, for example. So there's a lot of things we can kind of remove the veil of secrecy. And when we need help within the veil of secrecy, I think that information sharing orgs are the key to that.
Exactly. Thank you. So that leads us to our last 10 minutes, and we want to make sure that we have the ample opportunity for you guys to share something of grand knowledge for all of us that are sitting in the audience. So it can be any of the topics that we didn't touch on, because I know y'all don't want to stay out here till midnight, so we'll respect that. Or it can be something we did touch on that maybe you want to deeper dive in, or maybe you just want to share your last 2 cents of grand knowledge with the audience here today. So we'll leave it for your expert knowledge for the last 10 minutes. Nope. No. There's no running out of knowledge, especially with your, it's 6 p.m., do you know where your servers are doing? Knowledge, that is the highlight. That's our t-shirt quote for the day.
I love that. Can I put "Find My Friends" on it? Yeah, exactly. So I think most of us, we're all security professionals, right? And we joked about the most secure way is to take it offline. At the end of the day, though, I think what we're all effectively trying to do is securely enable the business and empower the business. So when I look at key performance indicators or KPIs for our security program, the question that I ask back to my business partners is, what are their KPIs? What are their business outcomes? What are their priorities? Because the key risk indicators that I'm reporting on, or the KRIs, should align with their KPIs. So security is not a silo. It's not something that just sits in a vertical and says, thou shalt not cross, right? We should be a platform, understanding the business and partnering with them so that we can use our resources effectively and prioritize. I think that's been the theme. So yeah, meet everyone, ask all the questions, and understand your business.
Are there any questions? Because I'm starting to think about war stories right now. War stories. All right. Well, let's talk about that butter bar that decided he was going to run a hot gate on the aircraft area during the Gulf War. Yeah. All right. I haven't told people this before.
I think we did have a question, actually, since you asked.
Sorry, it was about a question. I was going to ask how you changed the exhaust system.
Legitimately good question.
Well, I was totally micromanaged by my neighbor, who told me I was doing it all wrong. He's about 94 years old. I don't think he could see what I was doing, and his dog was crawling all over me underneath the truck.
But you're still doing it wrong.
But I was still doing it wrong. He's a good neighbor. Good neighbor. Yes.
Your last breath of knowledge.
Right. So I'm going to kind of riff off of what Bindi was saying and say this. I think I've struggled in the 30 days that I've been the CISO. I've struggled with demonstrating the value of prevention, right? It's a lot of people that I've talked to have had very similar experiences where something goes wrong and then we invest, right? So something bad had to happen in order for some level of investment, financial investment, some resource investment to happen to prevent it from happening again, right? What happened? How did this happen? Oh my goodness. We'll tell you we're short-staffed. We'll tell you we don't have these security controls. We'll tell you we don't have services, whatever it is. For us, I don't know, and it's a fun struggle to have in how do I tell my board that they're spending millions of dollars for nothing to happen, right? What happened today? Nothing.
And that was a good day.
Right? And that's a good day. Here's what tried to happen. But it's those KPIs, right? It's always having those conversations of I needed to, and I think this is my take home, right? I need to get better at saying, I'm doing my job and that's cool and nobody, like it's out of sight, out of mind. And as long as I'm out of sight, out of mind, I'm skating under the radar, nobody needs to know about this, this is great, I'm doing my job. I don't have to pat myself on the back because I'm doing my job, right? But if I don't pat myself on the back and if I don't understand how to monetize what work my team does and how well we do what we do, we start becoming uninteresting. So to Bindi's point, right, what are not just what your KPIs are, but what is your leaderships? What are your boards? What are your steering committees? What do they think? And how do they value prevention? Right? How do we demonstrate that that investment is critical year over year and it's not out of sight, out of mind, and it's not that because nothing ever happened, we don't have to do anything about it anymore. The threats didn't disappear, they're getting better. We have to continue to demonstrate that nothing happening is very expensive.
That really is a reorientation of perspective that for most business execs that we deal with. I think in closing, you talked about like the threats evolving. I've been seeing a whole lot of evidence, activity, and even community projects finding flaws and weaknesses more and more with the technology products that we have thrown our security problem over the wall to. Right, and in particular, EDR is phenomenal. We absolutely need it, and have it, get the best one you can have. But by the same token, between evasion tactics, blinding EDR, bring your own vulnerable device driver tactics to kill EDR, there's so many projects and so much going on there right now. We need to keep we need all these advanced technologies that fill this vendor hall. But we also need to make sure we're not leaning on them and that we're doing the basics right. Application and script control, host firewalling, patching, good identity and access management practices. I'll give a shout out to our friend Rich Owen, who, at multiple events has showed off his pink book that he wrote for NASA in 1990 as their first security guide. Well, I had the chance to thumb through that recently. And it's very relevant, right? Like you could look through that and do those things, and that would help you with ransomware today. So we need the advanced technologies. We need everything we've talked about. We need to think about AI, but we can't forget the basics while we do that.
Cheers to the fact that you said AI one more time. So cheers. Thank you all so much. It is now 5 o'clock, and we want to honor your time, and we don't want to hold you up from the happy hour that is happening this evening. We appreciate our panel. Thank you all so much for your knowledge and your expertise. Thank you for our audience participation and staying, and thank you to our vendors for all you have done for the conference today. And Kim, I'm passing it back to you.
You guys are dismissed. My panelists are dismissed, and if you need another drink ticket, Four Scout has them. All right, now for the fun. Oh, Michael, you're leaving. Come here, I have to. I got to ask you. This is for you. Oh, thank you so much. Will you wear it?